So, this is a reminder that not everything requires so much outrage. Sometimes it's actually better to hold the peace because it can cause your actions can actually cause more problems. So, this situation is about tax, and this happens in Matthew, or it's recorded in Matthew chapter 17 from verse 24. So when they came to Capernaum, those who collected the 2 drachma tax came to Peter and said, "Does your teacher not pay the 2 drachma tax?" He said, "Yes." And when he came into the house, Jesus spoke to him first, saying, "What do you think, Simon? From whom do the kings of the earth collect customs or poll tax, from their sons or from strangers?" When Peter said, "From strangers," Jesus said to him, "Then the sons are exempt. However, so that we do not offend them, go to the sea and throw in a hook and take the first fish that comes up, and when you open its mouth you will find a shekel. Take that and give it to them for you and me." What I really like about this is that obviously Jesus asked Simon, "What do you think of this?" And he was happy with the answer that Simon gave, and he agreed with it, but he also pointed out just not to cause trouble. And obviously we know later on Jesus starts to cause trouble, but clearly it isn't the time yet. But anyway, so it isn't the time. So Jesus points out, okay, let's not offend them. Let's just pay this tax. God will provide, and he does that through a miracle of money appearing in a fish's mouth. But the whole point of this is pointing that sometimes we can be in situations that we know are wrong. They're wrong, morally they are wrong, and sometimes we are quick to react. But there's times where it's a time where we shouldn't react, and this is where it's really important to always pray about situations, especially situations where you may think, should I say something? Does this need like a big input? Do I need to go in there heavy and stuff? But sometimes it's just not required at all, because there's points where obviously people, like a lot of people who obviously don't believe in Jesus and stuff like that, their hearts are hard. And when someone's heart is hard, like we see it with Pharaoh, if you go back to the Old Testament, and when it came to Pharaoh and Moses and the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, eventually God hardens Pharaoh's heart, because it got to the point where Pharaoh was just, God knew his heart. He knew his heart, so he thought he would just fast track it and just harden it. I did a whole video, if I remember I'll link it in the description. Yeah, in the description. But he knew Pharaoh at that point. He knew his personality, he knew everything. And the problem is, when we go in heavy all the time to whatever the situation, whoever you're kind of outraging to or whatever, their hearts may be hard and they may not be open at all. That's why when it comes to evangelism, you don't there's no point of arguing with people, because at that point they're not going to soften at all, because it's Jesus that softens people's hearts. At the end of the day, we just plant the seeds. So sometimes it's just no point of causing a riot, because they're not ready anyway. They're not ready to hear the truth. They're not ready, whatever the situation is, they're not ready for it. So there's no point of cause it, because you're just going to cause outrage. You're going to cause like more problems, because they're not ready to hear what you're gonna say to them, or whatever the situation is. So they're gonna be overly offended or whatever, and they're gonna do whatever. But you make the situation a lot bigger. So it's really important, and this emphasizes in the situation in our own lives, it's really important to actually think before we act, and ask God and think, do you want me to go into this situation, or how do you want me to tackle this? Because sometimes we go into situations with our own what we think that should be done, but that's not always the case. Unless And this passage is just a reminder that Jesus is reminded that sometimes it's better to comply than it is to kind of cause a riot in some sense. As I said, it depends on the situation. Obviously, if it's something extreme, like if someone, asks you, do you want to go out clubbing or something like that, then obviously it's a bit different. Obviously, you won't comply in something like that, or like comply to do an act of sin. But more so this is more so like situations you may come into that aren't necessarily direct sins, but you may be kind of, a good example would be, you may be concerned about somebody. If you're concerned about someone's welfare, how would you go into that? Sometimes it's best not to go in that on going full guns blazing. But the main point of this is basically just to pray about it. Just pray about it before doing the action, because at the end of the day, we're in partnership with Jesus, and Jesus' opinion is more better. He knows what's best for us. So it's important to always stay in that fellowship with him, and to ask him in these situations, because that's what he's here for. This is why, he's here for this is the point why God sent his son, because he's the perfect person to ask for wisdom and stuff. Like God tried it with us humans. We can go through all the different people that are supposed to be leaders of his people, and how there is some kind of flaw in it, but Jesus is the perfect person to ask and say, should I be doing this? What should I do? What is the best action for this situation?